Imagine how lethal UCLA's offense can be if they just add Kaedin Robinson to the mix. Or wait a minute, it might already be lethal with Nico and company.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free. Wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. Welcome back, everydayers. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And where we get started today, we're talking a little bit more about UCLA football and what they could bring to the table offensively this year. And to start things off, it's the big story that Kaedin Robinson has been continuing his lawsuit, his journey to play his last year of college football. For Robinson, it looked like, hey, maybe he might play. UCLA transfer from App State, that the JUCO eligibility granted to Diego Pavia was going to work with Joey Aguilar, was going to work with Robinson. And now the guy who was supposed to transfer in from App State with Aguilar was denied his NCAA eligibility, is suing for one last chance as a redshirt senior from North Carolina because he started his career at Asa College in Brooklyn, then went to Central Florida, then went to App State, and was coming to UCLA. Aguilar obviously has since transferred out to Tennessee with Nico coming in, but he represents a deep threat, somebody who can go get some big-time yardage down the field, and was one of the top targets for App State these last couple of years. Now, the problem was he was dealing with injury, and it looked like the story was over after his eligibility was denied. But after reports the last couple of days, you see what On3 is reporting, what the LA Times has been reporting. He has sued the college governing body to try and get one more season of eligibility. He has sued the NCAA. And this week, he's in an article written by the LA Times by Ben Bolch, the Central District of California, and that it's an unlawful 5-year eligibility rule that violates the federal antitrust laws. So basically, because of his opportunity to make money like UCLA and many other college athletes have, UCLA offered Robinson upwards of what looks to be a $450,000 NIL contract. Now, it's still not necessarily clear as to every athlete's NIL opportunities, but Robinson, this is somebody who could make a $450K salary, if you will, via NIL in this upcoming year. And what the lawsuit is claiming is that he was penalized for going to junior college in 2019, how COVID then disrupted, ruined, think about it, all those people who started college right around 2020, they didn't have a significant college experience. From 21 to 22, it really took a couple of years, depending on where you were playing college football, before things kind of got back in order. And for him, he's thinking, I can get a payday. I'm not with an NFL team right now. I'm coming off injury, and I was supposed to be one of the premier guys at UCLA, build my draft stock, and then maybe make it to the NFL career, and that could change the potential trajectory of his post-collegiate career while having a big-time opportunity to play at UCLA, where he'd be potentially a focal point for a UCLA offense with a receiver room that's got Quasi Gilmore, Malala, Mikey Matthews, still coming back from injuries, Rico Flores, Shaw. So I wonder what's going to play out. He is suing and continuing to battle. He's a 6'2 receiver who was a time to Aguilar. Now, it's not going to be that same quarterback-receiver combination, but it got me wondering, if he does and if he is eligible, how stacked this receiver room is. I was impressed with what Quasi Gilmore did his freshman year. We've been waiting for a healthier Titus Mokiao Atimalala. And you bring in Mikey Matthews with his receiver coach from Cal, a returning threat, a nice slot guy. Rico Flores Jr., who was the number one over Logan Loya last year, and I wonder what his health and availability will be to start the season prior to the, I believe, end of last year or close to it at some point. It's been a long time since Deshaun Foster's truly updated about Rico Flores Jr. from what I've seen. He is not necessarily going to be ready for week one, or at least the beginning of fall camp, but hopefully should be somebody to be ready to go, the former Notre Dame Fighting Irish product. And Carter Shaw, who I thought had some good opportunity with UCLA last year as well. So we have some young receivers, and I know there's a lot of youth coming in the receiver room in 2026 with what UCLA has been able to get and recruit, and there's still more coming in the portal this offseason with what they've brought in, but those are the highlight guys. Even without Kaedin Robinson, I think that's still a solid receiver group, but you're also relying upon Malala, who's been a little bit injured the last couple of years. You got Rico Flores Jr., who was injured and may be injured heading into 2025, and Robinson, who was still a little bit injured and banged up going into UCLA, even if his eligibility was given a green light. But you bring him into the fold, this is a UCLA team that I'm thinking Nico's got some receivers, maybe a little less at the tight end spot, but that's what UCLA can make up on out wide. And then from the running back standpoint, I think UCLA, with what they've been able to keep with Jalen Berger, Javian Thomas, maybe some of the young backs get some opportunity this year under Deshaun Foster's second year at the helm of UCLA. You would think the Bruins, with hopefully an improved offensive line, an added emphasis on getting the ball out quick and less complicated terms under the Eric Bieniemy offense now to the Tino Sunseri offense, with Nico hopefully not making as many decisions. The knock on him, talking with Brian Smith of Locked On the Portal, the knock is, hey, if he takes time to make decisions, maybe more mistakes happen where he holds on to the ball. But you get the ball out quick. You give it to your backs. You give it to the receivers who can go make plays. Then UCLA should absolutely have a fun offense to watch beyond just what Nico can do. Obviously, all the eyes would be on Nico Iamaleava, the highly coveted transfer in the spring portal coming over from Tennessee. But he's going to have some help. People talk about he's not going to have some help, or the back and forth about does he have enough help on the outside compared to Tennessee to UCLA. Well, the Bruins have some sneaky good receivers, some sneaky good talent, underrated talent at the running back room. It's whether they can protect Nico and company. I hope that's the case. For now, though, UCLA will live with the receiver room, which is, I think, solid, but could have a significant upgrade if Robinson's granted the extra eligibility. Now, will it? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure, because at some point, somebody's got to stand their ground, and then you're going to keep going further and further up in the timeline as to who's going to be granted the Diego Pavia JUCO rule eligibility of I can keep going, keep playing. But Robinson has an interesting case, and he's not quitting, and I wonder what it'll end up for UCLA, who's got an offense I think that can generate points, yards, some excitement, a lot more so than last year with Garbers and Eric Bieniemy. It's just to who might be in the receiver room, who's going to step up. All questions that are fairly valid this upcoming year for UCLA, and I think they should be a fun watch this year. Next, though, what does UCLA's baseball program look like after the MLB draft just happened and finished up in 2025? Looking forward to that 2026 season. Not sure if they have a home, they've got a coach, but let's see what the roster looks like as to people who are draft eligible next. So let's talk to you about Monarch Money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, you can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO that gives you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money, it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And you're thinking, wait, for me, I'm like, wait, I have all these subscriptions, whether it be to a theme park, whether it be to, oh, wait, how much am I spending to eat out these last couple of days? Monarch Money, you can put it all in one app. You can build wealth so you can prepare for the future while also know what's affecting you in the present. Go to Monarch Money, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So moving on to the second segment, UCLA baseball coming off a surprising College World Series run, to say the least, where, all right, I didn't know if they'd get out of their own regional, let alone get to the Supers. And then they made it to the Supers, hosted a scrappy UTSA team, were able to take on the underdog Murray State Racers team in the opening round of the College World Series. And after a good start in the winners bracket round of the College World Series, found themselves with some poor weather, bad luck, 2 games in a day, and the Bruins bowed out in Omaha. But a very good stretch for John Savage, who is entering the end of his contract, a year where the Bruins had no true idea of where they might play before they ended up playing what could potentially be the final season at Jackie Robinson Stadium. Those question marks at the moment are still up in the air. And now you've got a team who you're waiting to see what are they going to do in this upcoming season. Well, a lot of that depends on who is coming, who is not coming for UCLA, and who is leaving. Well, UCLA got a big transfer, a big center fielder coming in from Texas, a local kid who played his high school ball at Harvard-Westlake. I talked about Casperino, who has already been a transfer into UCLA. All right, that's new. That's not old news. That's not new news. That's old news. What UCLA had to avoid was losing some significant talent to the draft, and they haven't lost anybody to the portal. They want to come back, run it back, and win a national championship. There's nothing short of that goal. They've made it to Omaha. They want to take the next step and compete for a national championship. So the only player drafted in the MLB draft for UCLA of their current roster was Cody Delvecchio, 12th round by the San Francisco Giants. And you wonder for Delvecchio, who was expected to have more of a significant role, was declared academically ineligible. John Savage, UCLA's head coach, was fairly forthcoming as to he had to work his way back. UCLA's in the quarter system. You get a grade check early, and then they had to bounce back, and he was still eligible to make it at the end of the regular season. Now, in his junior season, where he lost a lot of opportunity to build his draft stock and earn a higher draft standing, is he going to use his potential of going back to school to earn a little bit more money in that initial contract with the Giants and go pro? Or is he thinking, if I can just survive the last grade check, if I can just make my way through the fall, he could have a big role for UCLA, put up some big numbers as to whether he's a back end of the bullpen guy. Maybe he's somebody in Delvecchio that could be a weekend starter, because UCLA clearly did not have solid starting options Friday through Sunday, let alone a midweek starter, to be a truly competitive team to win the national championship. They got it to the winner's bracket of Omaha, but to win the national championship, you have to have good starting pitching, right? Think of Cade Anderson. Think of LSU, Anthony Ianson, who came from UC San Diego, a local kid. You had Cade Anderson, who just shut down Coastal Carolina. The need for starting pitching is there, and if Delvecchio turns to that option and comes back to school, it would be huge for a team that is desperate. UCLA is desperate for any type of pitching. The offense was good. The defense was pretty elite with the ways they could turn double plays. But for now, UCLA needs to see if Delvecchio will return, has until July 28th to decide to sign and start his professional career, or he'll come back to UCLA, and I think the Bruins would be better off for it, considering the biggest transfer they got coming in, from my knowledge, is a center fielder. Now, other guys who could make an impact, undrafted or not, you had Angel Cervantes, who was a top 50 pick by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Second rounder. He's a high school commit to UCLA. So a high school incoming freshman who is this California kid, mid-90s. And I wonder if he would make a contribution as a freshman, because anybody coming to UCLA can make a contribution. But picked pretty high by the Pirates. Not sure that a second rounder is going to turn down that opportunity, even if it is Pittsburgh. But Cervantes getting picked that early is something that could be a blow to UCLA's incoming recruiting class, which has been the case in recent years, why we've seen the Bruins slowly decline down when they didn't play the transfer portal. They've been losing out on guys to the draft, and now their pitching staff isn't as dominant as it was when they had the Bowers of the world, the Garrett Coles of the world, the Pletkos of the world, right? Leading them to a national championship in 2013. So that is the significant selection, I think. 2 pitching options, one of which I would think somebody picked in the second round is going to make it. Haven't seen if there's been any updates on the signing of any of these guys just yet, but for now, that would be the most significant and incoming recruit. And then Delvecchio, who could be a significant veteran to play for UCLA. Guys who did not get drafted. You had the likes of Peyton Brennan, Michael Barnett, because a good portion of UCLA's roster that were big contributors were guys that, like Rock Chalowski, Mulavai Levu, who were sophomores and not draft eligible. They're draft eligible after their junior year, and they're most likely going to go after their junior year. Rock Chalowski, the 2026 way too early number one pick draft choice in the MLB draft in a year from now. But a lot of these guys could be like, hey, wait a minute. We can still contribute. And right now, Peyton Brennan, who had a great postseason, could return, didn't get drafted. Michael Barnett, another weekend starter for the Bruins, could come back and maintain that same role. So if Delvecchio and Barnett both return, only Delvecchio was drafted. Barnett and Brennan were not drafted as some of the highly coveted UCLA Bruins to return that contributed in 2025, did not get drafted. Those are guys with 1 year of eligibility. They come back, man, you got an outfield option, whether it be on the bench, starting option, and then a starting rotation guy, Michael Barnett. And hopefully with some development, hopefully with some year-to-year growth by other UCLA pitchers, this is a team that could still turn itself into a national championship contender. Not sure where they're going to play their home games. You got the reports that John Savage, according to the Daily Bruin, that UCLA has extended and given a 3-year extension to John Savage. I wonder how much longer he'll keep going, if it's forever, if it's 3 years to another decade. But the Bruins have their head coach in place. A good portion of the heartbeat of the roster is intact, and the depth pieces filling out your lineup and your roster and your bullpen is looking to play a factor into UCLA, and it's looking good. If Delvecchio comes back and he's willing to put in the work in the classroom, he's willing to maintain being academically eligible, if he develops as a pitcher, and it's not just all in Delvecchio, he's the only one drafted though. If he wants to maintain staying as a collegiate athlete and build his draft stock for next year, where you can't miss during your senior season, you cannot miss, then I think the Bruins will be better off for it. But until then, I think a pretty good draft for UCLA. Not in terms of putting in major leaguers, because that's going to come in a year. It's more, what can they do to be successful 26? I think, for the most part, things have gone as good as they can for UCLA. Other than Cervantes getting drafted in the second round and Delvecchio getting drafted in the 12th, the Bruins are looking good. Next, we're going to do a happy belated birthday to Mick Cronin and give us our best memories so far of the UCLA head man. We're wrapping things up here on the Locked On UCLA podcast. Zach with you guys. We're talking a happy belated birthday to Mick Cronin. UCLA posted things on July 17th, the July birthdays. We love those. Shout out to head coach Mick Cronin. And now he's coming into a significant year as the head of the UCLA basketball program. And what do I mean by that? This is somebody who just turned 54 in a profession at the college level, especially college basketball, where we've seen coaches retire younger and younger, right? You've seen Tony Bennett, you've seen Jay Wright. Finally, we've seen, Roy Williams and Coach K. Lee, but those are a little older guys. But some of the younger names who are about to take over and dominate or have been dominating the sport have been retiring. I'm not saying that's where Mick Cronin's headed, but he's a younger coach with some gravitas and his ability to say anything on the top of his head, and he will let it fly, which has pushed people the wrong way, has alienated some of the UCLA fans who, you think about it, if you live exactly by the pyramid of success with John Wooden, and you see that he would never do anything with his players in terms of yelling at them, Mick Cronin's the complete opposite. And that's why he's successful. And as I've pointed out back in early January, when Mick Cronin was getting on his players, he's been immediately successful in his own way. And how he's been successful at UCLA has been making the tournament in almost every year. He's been pretty consistent at UCLA at getting to the tournament and getting to the second weekend, and has a Final Four, and has been some heartbreaking individual performances or half-court shots from way downtown that have cost UCLA getting deeper in the tournament, whether it be the national championship game where UCLA could have played in double overtime against Gonzaga and maybe got to the title game against Baylor, or for UCLA, maybe it was against North Carolina and Caleb Love. Or in the case of, UCLA and Gonzaga, all those are the bad. For Cronin, the good, in my mind, I believe he's brought a lot more respectability back to UCLA's name. Now, Steve Alford, you could see them as number one in the country. They won some Kentucky games, but they always underachieved when it came to the tournament. And Cronin so far has overachieved 1 year, and I think brought some buzz, brought an outspoken coach to a UCLA program that, as much as we see the 11-time national championship shirts, as much as we see they're a blue blood, UCLA needed somebody to bring the spotlight for better or for worse, back to UCLA. And Cronin is going to be outspoken about the NCAA, the transfer portal, college athletics, his own team. And that's why a lot of people love him. Even as he might be starting to sour on a couple of people, I've started to see and hear that from various UCLA fans, close or not close to me. And then you're like, wait a minute, what's he going to do? The immensity, the immense pressure slowly coming on him these next couple of years. This year, you've got Donovan Dent. The Bruins ponied up a little bit before the revenue sharing agreement came into place. The Bruins put up $4 million in NIL opportunities for Donovan Dent. Now, $450K seems a lot for Kaedin Robinson, and that's what he's wanting coming from him out of state. But the Mountain West Player of the Year, who led New Mexico to a win over UCLA, to getting deeper in the tournament, well, and he comes to UCLA as a SoCal kid, and you wanted your man, you got him big time. And after how everything deteriorated with Adamata, both sides have to be blamed for how that went down as well. This is a big year for UCLA because they went out, they got a big name transfer. He's gotten his overhaul after complaining about the lack of NIL opportunities. The Bruins have mostly gotten that in the portal in the previous offseason, led by Tyler Bilodeau and company. And now this year, going after Donovan Dent specifically, while other names were involved, Donovan Dent is the big headliner. Mick Cronin, in this new day and age, is you're going to watch UCLA become a Big Ten contender for years to come, or we're going to say how dumb the move to the Big Ten was. Not necessarily that was Mick Cronin led. That was not. He clearly is against that with how the travel works and how UCLA plays almost all their November games no further east than maybe Vegas until January. So it's a different age, and he's trying to bring this UCLA roster while learning on the fly in the portal, learning on the fly in the NAL, learning on the fly in traveling, how to put that together for a team that everybody's going to be begging for playing time, but he likes to go with a lot less players than he did last year when it came to 10 to 12 guys could play. This year, you're going to see a much shorter rotation, and the Bruins should be competitive. John Rothstein has UCLA as a top 10 team. You'll see Bracketology and ESPN of Jeff Borzello has UCLA top 15. Our own Locked On rankings have UCLA sorting between top 15 or top 5, top 6, and where their best players transferred out. It'll be a fascinating year, and Mick Cronin has made UCLA a respectable contender. No embarrassing losses of the mid-major level since Cronin's first year, and he turned the program around, other than last year or the year before against CSUN, of course. But I think for the most part, he's avoided the embarrassment that Steve Alford brought to UCLA in terms of wins and losses at the end of his tenure. Now, people might say they should have not hired Mick Cronin. At the moment, he's done pretty good things. Now, this is the year that will define Mick Cronin, whether it's for years to come or if this is the beginning of the end. So a lot to talk about for Mick Cronin. Fascinating year, fascinating storylines, and I can't wait to dive in more here on Locked On UCLA. All right, get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.